Hello, my name is Betul. I'm from Al Mustanshara University in Baghdad, Translation Department. I'm going to read you Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows from pages 348 to page 353. He remembered the snake coming out of Bathilda's neck. Hermione did not need to know the details. She changed into the snake and attacked. He looked down at the puncture marks. It wasn't supposed to kill me. Just keep me there till you know who came. If he had only managed to kill a snake, it would have been worth it, all of it, sick at heart. He sat up and threw back the covers. Harry, I'm sure you're out to rest. You're the one who needs sleep. No offense, but you look terrible. I'm fine. I'll keep watch for a while. Where's my wand? She did not answer. She merely looked at him. Where's my wand, Hermione? She was biting her lip, and tears swam in her eyes. Harry, where's my wand? She reached down beside the bed and held it out to him. The Holy and Phoenix wand was nearly severed in two. One fragile strand of phoenix feather kept both pieces hanging together. The wood had splintered apart completely. Harry took it into his hands as though it was a living thing that had suffered a terrible injury. He could not think properly. Everything was a blur of panic and fear. Then he held out the wand to Hermione. Mend it, please. Harry, I don't think, when it's broken like this. Please, Hermione, try. Reparo. The dangling half of the wand resealed itself. Harry held it up. Lumos. The wand sparked feebly, then went out. Harry pointed it at Hermione. Expelliarmus. Hermione's wand gave a little jerk, but did not leave her hand. The feeble attempt at magic was too much for Harry's wand, which split into two again. He stared at it, aghast, unable to take in what he was seeing. The wand that had survived so much. Harry, Hermione whispered so quietly he could hardly hear her. I'm so sorry. I think it was me. As we were leaving, the snake was coming for us, and so I cast a blasting curse, and it rebounded everywhere, and it must have hit. It was an accident, said Harry mechanically. He felt empty, stunned. Well, we'll find a way to repair it. Harry, I don't think we're going to be able to, said Hermione, the tears trickling down her face. Remember Ron? When he broke his wand, crashing the car, it was never the same again. He had to get a new one. Harry thought of Ollivander, kidnapped and held hostage by Voldemort, of Grigorovich, who was dead. How was he supposed to find himself a new wand? Well, he said in a falsely matter-of-fact voice. Well, I'll just borrow yours for now, then, while I keep watch. Her face glazed with tears. Hermione handed over her wand, and he left her sitting beside his bed, desiring nothing more than to get away from her. Chapter 18. The Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore. The sun was coming up. The pure, colourless vastness of the sky stretched over him, indifferent to him and his suffering. Harry sat down in the tent entrance and took a deep breath of clean air. Simply to be alive to watch the sunrise over the sparkling, snowy hillside ought to have been the greatest treasure on earth. Yet he could not appreciate it. His senses had been sparked by the calamity of losing his wand. He looked out over a valley blanketed in snow, distant church bells chiming through the glittering silence. Without realizing it, he was digging his fingers into his arms as if he were trying to resist physical pain. He had spilled his own blood more times than he could count. He had lost all the bones in his right arm once. This journey had already given him scars to his chest and forearm, to join those on his hand and forehead. But never, until this moment, had he felt himself to be fatally weakened, vulnerable and naked, as though the best part of his magical power had been torn from him. He knew exactly what Hermione would say if he had expressed any of this. The wand is only as good as the wizard. But she was wrong. His case was different. She had not felt the wand spin like the needle of a compass and shoot golden flames at his enemy. He had lost the protection of its twin course, and only now that it was gone did he realize how much he had been counting upon it. He pulled the pieces of the broken wand out of his pocket, and without looking at them, tucked them away in Hagrid's pouch around his neck. The pouch was now too full of broken and useless objects to take any more. Harry's hand brushed the old snitch through the moleskin, and for a moment he had to fight the temptation to pull it out and throw it away. Impenetrable, unhelpful, useless, like everything else Dumbledore had left behind. And his fury at Dumbledore broke over him now like lava, scorching him inside, wiping out every other feeling. Out of sheer desperation, they had talked themselves into believing that Godric's Hollow held answers, convinced themselves that they were supposed to go back, that it was all part of some secret path laid out for them by Dumbledore. But there was no map, no plan. Dumbledore had left them to grope in the darkness, to wrestle with unknown and undreamed of terrors, alone and unaided. Nothing was explained, nothing was given freely. They had no sword, and now Harry had no wand. And he had dropped the photograph of the thief, and it would surely be easy now for Voldemort to find out who he was. Voldemort had all the information now. Harry? Hermione looked frightened that he might curse her with her own wand. Her face streaked with tears. She crouched down beside him, 2 cups of tea trembling in her hands and something bulky under her arm. "Thanks," he said, taking one of the cups. "Do you mind if I talk to you?" "No," he said, because he did not want to hurt her feelings. "Harry, you wanted to know who that man in the picture was." "Well, I've got the book." Timidly she pushed it onto his lap, a pristine copy of The Life and the Lies of Albus Dumbledore. "Where? How?" "It was in Bathilda's sitting room, just lying there. This note was sticking out of the top of it." Hermione read a few lines of spiky, acid green writing aloud. "Dear Patty, thanks for your help. Here is a copy of the book. Hope you like it. You said everything, even if you don't remember it, Rita. Rita. I think it must have arrived while the real Bathilda was alive. But perhaps she wasn't in any fit state to read it." "No, probably she wasn't." Harry looked down upon Dumbledore's face and experienced a surge of savage pleasure. He would know all the things that Dumbledore had never thought it worth telling him. With Dumbledore, whether Dumbledore wanted him to or not. "You're still really angry at me, aren't you?" said Hermione. He looked up to see fresh tears out of her eyes, and he knew that his anger must have shown in his face. "No," he said quietly. "No, Hermione. I know it was an accident. You were trying to get us out of there, and you were incredible. I'd be dead if you hadn't been there to help me." He tried to return her watery smile, then turned his attention to the book. Its spine was stiff. It had clearly never been opened before. He riffled through the pages, looking for a photograph. He came across the one he sought almost at once, the young Dumbledore and his handsome companion, roaring with laughter at some long-forgotten joke. Harry dropped his eyes to the caption. Albus Dumbledore, shortly after his mother's death, with his friend Gellert Grindelwald. Harry gaped at the last word for several long moments. Grindelwald? His friend Grindelwald? He looked sideways at Hermione, who was still contemplating the name as though she could not believe her eyes. Slowly she looked up at Harry. Grindelwald? Ignoring the remainder of the photograph, Harry searched the pages around them for a recurrence of that fatal name. He soon discovered it and read greedily, but became lost. It was necessary to go further back to make sense of it all. and eventually he found himself at the start of a chapter entitled The Greater Good. Together, he and Hermione started to read. Now approaching his 18th birthday, Dumbledore left Hogwarts in a blaze of glory. Head boy, prefect, winner of the Barnabas Finkley Prize for exceptional spellcasting, British Youth representative to the Wizengamot, Gold Medal winner for groundbreaking contribution to the International Alchemical Conference in Cairo. Dumbledore intended next to take a grand tour with Elphias Dogbreath Douge, the dim-witted but devoted sidekick he had picked up at school. The two young men were staying at the Leaky Cauldron in London, preparing to depart for Greece the following morning, when an owl arrived bearing news of Dumbledore's mother's death.